the thing is, and I would never tell anybody the location. I've mentioned it in conversation, but I'll never tell anybody where these holes are in the ground because I wouldn't want anybody to doubt me and go, and I wouldn't want anybody to be enthusiastic and go, because that is a grade A dogman den, no matter what. And I will never forget it. I've heard of people say many a times that they often see these dogmen next to swampy areas, and I fully back that up. If there's an area off track that's got swampy area, and I'm not talking water, I'm talking thick, like mucusy, crap, putrid type of area, these dogmen seem to love it for some reason, and they won't be too far away, their homes. Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I'd bet good money that they live in areas like that because, for the most part, people just don't go into areas like that. And if they're going to have experiences with people, they want to force those experiences to happen and not just happen out of the blue.
Yeah. That was a sheer moment of bad luck and good luck, really, because that's what I was looking for. But I tell you, Vic, when I found it, it was by mistake, and I could have got stuck down there because I slid down the embankment and I couldn't get back up. I was trying my hardest, but the worst thing was when I slid down half, the ground just come away from my feet, and I got to me 2 feet stuck in the pond, whatever you could call it, and I couldn't get my foot out at first. It was like stuck in, and I swear to God, if I'd hit it any harder, I wouldn't have been able to pull my legs out. And not only that, the moment I realised I could have messed up here, and I've just landed right in front of the dogman den again, my legs went to jelly. I didn't have the strength. I had more strength when I was a 2-year-old boy. I couldn't get up the embankment, and I fought. And by the time I did get to the top of it, I had an hour and a half of trekking to get to safety, and dark was coming in, and I had a horrible feeling that whatever is around there is like giving me a time limit. You've got until it goes dark to get your stuff and get gone, or your dinner, basically. That's what I felt. I felt like it knows I'm there. Something's been already aware of my presence, and this is all like swamped on me in one go, and I've got till it goes dark. And I've got this horrible feeling if it wasn't dark, if it wasn't daylight, I'd be dead. It's something that had flown out of that hole and ripped me apart. That's all I can describe it as. And I felt it, and it took my energy away from me. Every time I tried to get up that little embankment, could I get up? Not a chance. And the worst thing was when I did get up it, I had nothing left in me. I was basically on my hands and knees for about 20 yards. And luckily, because I do train, I got a bit of wind in my sails. But I tell you what, it wasn't a pleasant journey back, put it that way. I found the road. I fell over the gate. I climbed over it. I fell over the gate. I ripped my bags, all stuff come out of my bag. I left half of my stuff. And I was I was hoping a car would come down. Because these places are sort of way, there's no chance of that happening. And I was just going to thumb a lift. And I had money on me. I was going to give someone £100 if they just pick me up and take me further down the road or anywhere away from where this. Because I thought to myself, if this thing is banking on the dark coming, it'll be following me in the fields next to me. And then if I'm not too fast and I get caught out, I'm still going to get it. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, so pretty intense stuff, to be honest with you.
It sounds horrible. Yeah, it goes without saying, I'm just glad you made it out of there.
Yeah.
When you decided to stay with your parents, hoping to escape the experiences you're having with dogmen, did you have any concerns about the possibility the dogmen might follow you to their property?
Yeah, definitely. This is what struck me. With the second encounter, because even when I was at my dad's, I didn't want to go out at night. It was like every time I went out at night, that atmosphere in the air was still the same. And it's been like that ever since. But I have often thought that I've been followed back a few times, especially even to my dad's, because where we used to go camping, which is story, I'll tell you another day if you'll ever have me back. It's the Delamere stories that we have. I always used to get dropped off by my dad there, and I always used to get the impression, because I could hear howling around my dad's house at night, because his house actually backs onto an ancient castle. It's called Beeston Castle, and it all around the area is absolute riddled in sightings of dogmen and stuff like that. So But every now and again, I would go out at night and I would hear howling and all this stuff. And I was thinking, is that directed at me? Or, yeah, or, always used to be when I would go out at night. So I would always, like if I went out with my dad for a walk around the block, it's only a very small village, then I would always hear the howling start up. It was always at night time. I felt very connected, and I have done ever since. I mean, last year has been a bit quiet for me because my girlfriend Louise, she's not too well. She's has a problem with a liver. Story for another day. But I've not been out as much last year because I've been a carer. But next year things have changed a little bit, and we're going to get a bit of help in, and I'll be able to get out there, and because I've got lots of places that I need to catch up on. Yeah, but definitely think that they follow you back 100%.
It sure does appear to be that way.
Yeah.
When you and Danny went camping at Nunsmere and you noticed that he was concerned about something in the bushes, you told us about the ominous feeling that came over you, but did you regret not telling him about your Dogman experiences?
No, I didn't. I thought if I told him, this is a thing that you have to get used to, because I do not tell a soul, really. I've only ever told Danny, and I've made a lot of other friends, but anyone else in my life, I've never, ever ventured down this route. I've never told them, because I found even when you do tell someone, they're not interested or they don't believe. So I've found it's best to keep it to myself, but I did feel a bit guilty. On that night, I did feel guilty putting Danny in the tent, because I thought, am I wrong or am I right coming out camping after what I've seen? I should have told him. Danny would have only gone, oh, never mind, come on. Then that would have hurt my feelings, because I wondered on so many occasions how I would explain it to somebody. And then in the end, I just give up, because I didn't want it thrown back in my face, because it's genuine. But I did feel guilty. But like I said, we had a massive chat, and we both linked up, and both of us took it on like it was meant to be. Both of us have hit this cryptid subject massively. We love it. Can't get enough of it. As dangerous as it is, it probably meet me end some way down this route, but we love it. Danny's just the same. But other people, if they'd have believed what I'd said, they would ruin their way of looking at life, because they'd only have to start, hitting the right areas for a bit of info themselves, and it's very addictive. And if you get a bee in your bonnet where you actually even have a little tiny, this could be real, it drags you in, and it won't be long before your life's ruined, because it's like I said in my last interview, it's either a maker or a breaker. Especially when you've had an encounter, you have to say to yourself from that moment, am I going to ignore it and stay in and adapt my life around it, which doesn't involve any countryside or going anywhere out in the dark? And it's very difficult to think like that. Or do I take it on board, study, learn, and try and make some kind of hobby out of it, like a lot of us do? And some do it well, some do it. It doesn't work for some people, but I seem to get on with it pretty well. Don't get me wrong, though, when it has backfired, when I've gone a bit too far and I've smelt that smell of, which is unmistakable Dogman, straight away I've just been hit with that voice in my head saying, Dave, what are you doing? Why aren't you thinking right? You shouldn't be here, mate. You know it, and whatever's out there knows you shouldn't be here as well, because that's the type of vibe I'm kicking off now. I'm not so confident. So I think it's very, it adds suture, it doesn't. Don't you get off any places, Vic, knowing what you know? Do you go any places?
Yeah, I do go into places where there are dogmen, but not to look for them, just to do other things, ride horses and have fun in general. But moving back to that experience that you and Danny had, you wanted to get back into your tents, knowing that you likely had a dogman around, or as it turned out, more than one dogman. Why didn't you insist upon leaving?
That's what I thought. I said it in the interview before. It wasn't like that, because I'd have to tell Danny exactly what I've seen in the previous, and there wasn't enough time. The situation was just too grounding. It was one of them where you just have to bury your head in the ground and hope that daylight comes quick. And plus, we had too much stuff with us. There's no way we could get out of there safely with all our stuff. Danny would never leave his equipment there. I would have been reluctant. But when I look back on that, even if we did go, none of us would have gone out in the dark, pitch black, because the nearest place to us was a hotel, and that was all shut off. And then the nearest place after that, you're talking miles away. So we're out in the middle of it. So we didn't want to move. It was just safer for us to stay where we are, because right now we're not getting bothered. I mean, they're right on the outskirts of us. I didn't want to go anywhere left. I didn't know whether to. It was pitch black. The torches weren't good enough as well. I mean, we've soon adapted the tackle to suit these environments. Now we've got everything when we go out, but back then we didn't. We had your basic head torch. We had the basic phone. Nothing really that was suitable for a quick extraction out of an area, put it that way. So, yeah, we've got all sorts of stuff now, but it was a difficult decision. But all we wanted to do was stay out of sight. And that's what I wanted to do anyway, stay out of sight. And not only that, from my last encounter, what I know about this dogman can take away your strength. I would only have to walk round the corner, and if I got hit with that infrasound thing again, it would put me on my back. And I didn't want to be giving myself away that easy too. So there's a lot to consider. A lot of people do get away quite easy, but I've known tons of encounters where people have been hit with that infrasound and they've just been dropped like a sack of potatoes. It's like lions do in the wild, and they drop prey like a sack of potatoes as well. Just, you know, and then they're more or less dead before they get there. It's quite crazy, really, isn't it?
It is. And also, I'll tell you what's crazy, the sense of solace that a tent can give you when you think about it. It's just paper-thin fabric. It's not going to protect you, but still, nonetheless, it can give you a sense of security.
It can do, believe me. Yeah, it's surprising. Even it's funny you should say that, because that's exactly what it does. It's like you've just been given the biggest sheet of armor ever, and it's only wafer thin. Well, you're definitely right there.
Oh, no doubt. Now that you know where the den is that you found on that camping trip, have you gone back to see if it's still there?
Yeah, we have done. We went back to this area on Nunsmere once. We went back 5 days later. So we've got to there. So we went over to the tree area where that dogman I seen was, and we've measured it to be over 6.5 foot tall. And then we've had a look in the bushes. The bushes were more overgrown. You can still see the hole in there, definitely. It looks like whatever's been making this entrance has been collecting stuff from around the area. It's like there's a place where some, what they call with the grounds workers in the forest workers, I can't remember the name. They cut all the wood. There's a place there, and there's like lots of different pieces of wood that you would get from someone who's been cutting wood around this hole. And there's like bits of plastic as well on the entrance, like something's been hoarding all the rubbish that's knocking about. So, yeah, we've never been back since. And it's all been fenced off now, funnily enough. The whole area's been fenced off.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so we don't know why. I know Danny's been back once before. He's climbed the fence, but there was some kind of security there that's quickly got hold of him and had sent him the other way. But it's like I said, this area, Nunsmere, and where we were camping, so we've had a look the day after, because we didn't really take too much notice of where we were camping. The day after, it's all connected to these trails. These trails like go on all the way through, and they're like interconnected to all the local woods and forests and all the ancient trails that they all seem to hit this one trail that leads into Nunsmere. And it's right next to all these like old lakes, like thousands of years old, stuff like that. So it's got history.
It sure sounds like it.
Yeah.
Did you find any interesting prints around the den, or is that something you didn't look for?
No, but yeah, just the ones on the trees. It's like I said, there was a lot. The whole thing lasted. I was that focused when as soon as I slid, I was all right until I slid. But the moment I hit and got my foot stuck in the swamp, I got hit with this immediate danger feeling, and I needed to get out of that area. And the smell, I knew straight away where I was. As soon as I clapped eyes on them holes, they were big holes as well. They weren't small. It's not something a badger's going to do. I'm telling you, it was eerie. I can't explain to you. Imagine, oh God, I don't know how to do it. Looking in the hole was the eeriest thing, because They were like, it's like in a sand embankment, basically. What it looked like a piece of machinery had done it, but when I think back now, it could have been claws. But that's what the groove marks were. Like something's been rubbing its hands around the sides constantly and making this hole bigger. I don't know why. It was just the way it was. Like something's got its hand and started to pull mounds and mounds of mud out. But it was just the markings on the trees, that each tree on my way down the embankment was damaged and snapped. You wouldn't have noticed on the outside. All this damage was on the inside area. Like the inside area where the swamp is. So you got two sides to a bush. One was completely normally flowered and all that stuff. The other side has looked like a bomb had gone off. That's all I can describe. Everything was damaged. Everything had snapped. Nothing was left living. It just looked like you've gone from a really living, loving area, fields, green and all this, and all of a sudden you've dropped yourself into everything and everything's dead. All the wood's old and snapped, and the smell in the area is just like of death. It's just horrible. And the swampy smell is just made me feel like, if you got stuck in there, you're going to stay there and you're going to die there. It's horrible. Yeah. Really nasty place to be. I've drove past it on the motorway a few times, but I wouldn't go down there. If you offered me £10,000, I wouldn't go back there on foot. I'd be too bothered about leaving me scent there. Because as soon as I got back to the hotel, I packed my stuff up and I paid £80 to get a taxi back home. I was gone. Because straight away I thought, whatever that is, got my scent. I'm not hanging about here. I'm just going to go home and hopefully I won't attract too much attention. Hopefully I left enough fear to say that I won't be a problem. I wasn't too enthusiastic after that, to be honest with you, Vic. I think I shut shop for a few months after that because I thought to myself, I'm getting a bit cocky now. I'm going out on my own and I'm not telling anyone, and something like that's happened and it could have wiped me off the face of the planet again. And so I had to go back to the drawing board and sort of redesign how I did things, sort of change the dynamics of how I go about looking for these things, because it's a dangerous game.
I'm glad you did decide to pump the brakes. And just imagine how horrible it would have been if you would have tumbled down that bank and right into one of those dens.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, when I hit the swamp, I'm not joking, it was 4 foot away from me, both of them. 4 foot away, staring at me straight in my face. They were like 2 foot up the embankment, one just behind another one, but they were right next to each other. 2 massive holes in the ground. And so whatever they were, it's been skillfully done. No small animals took time to do this. It just gave me the impression it may have been a hole from another animal at first, by the way it looked, but something's took over it and made it a bit more adapting for another animal, a big animal, like.
Yeah, sounds like it would have been a big animal that lived there. Staying in one place as long as the one you were focused on did when you and Danny were camping, did you ever consider the possibility it was trying to keep your attention while one of its cohorts snuck up behind your tent?
No, to be honest with you, I thought when I've got home and I've mulled my feelings over, my emotions, because I had a different set of feelings. Although I was petrified, I mean, that goes without saying because of what I was looking at, but it felt like we were getting not stalked, but they were like seeing how close they could get to us before getting seen. Like they were. That's it. I wasn't feeling any threat from them, which could quite easily happen. Whereas the one on the farm, I got grade A threat, like the worst type. This wasn't. I felt the worry, and I felt the surroundings were worried as well. There was no birds, no noises, no wildlife, complete, like someone had just sucked the oxygen out the area. But it was like something was testing to see how close that's the only way I could describe it. Yeah.
They do that. You had an interesting conversation with a man he went camping. No, I take that back. He was actually homeless at the time, and it was a windy night. I think it was fall. And he and his girlfriend were sleeping in this tent at an abandoned campsite. He said that his girlfriend heard some strange sound outside, so she peeked out the tent door and she saw, I think, 4 or 5 dogmen that were on their bellies, apparently creeping towards their tent. Well, I tried to explain to him, these guys can be so quiet that if they didn't want you to hear them, you never would have. They were just trying to get a response out of you, but for some reason, they tend to do things like that. So maybe that's what was going on in your case.
Yeah, I really would love Danny to speak to you one day, because he's a big fan of yours as well. He's a big follower. And the way he described this Dogman that I didn't see, but the way he described it was the massive, as soon as he said the size of the head, I knew what it was. But he says the way it flattened itself to the ground was like a pancake. And he couldn't sort of get his head around how it's done it for such a big animal. And when he was describing it, because Danny's a hard worker, and I'm sure he was thinking, he's a bit tired. Is he seeing the right thing? And I'm sure that was on his mind, because he did say. But when we've talked about it, and now we've both got lots of knowledge, he's very knowledgeable on the subject. He knows what it was as well. But these dogmen can flatten themselves and run along the floor, along the bellies, basically, like lightning. And I've heard of the speed. I've heard so many encounters of the speed of these animals as well. And that's when I knew that when I was in Yorkshire and that thing ran past the house onto the lanes. And I forgot to mention the lane that it ran past. It ran from left to right. So I'm looking out the window. So it's come across left to right. It's gone straight through the fields, but they're the fields that link to Yorkshire Moors. And the Yorkshire Moors is just, it's absolutely riddled. I mean, you wouldn't want to go missing on there, I tell you. But that noise that it made, Vic, I'll try my best to get some vocals from something that's similar, because it'd be interesting to put it out there. But it's amazing. The wind and the noise, the instant, like the that it made as it bolted past, it lasted for about a second or 2 seconds, gone. Then it's back to silent, and everything on the house was jingling, and on the neighbour's house was jingling. So eerie. And then it wasn't too long after that, I seen it on the other side of the bush. But there's a way, I wish people could understand this cloaking technique that these animals have. It's fascinating, because it actually looked like part of the bush. I could see leaves on its face. That's how bad it was. But I could also see details as well. I could see its muzzle, I could see its face, I could see its mouth, I could see its horrible eyes. And they didn't look pleasant. It really looked like it was not happy as well. Not happy with me for some reason, and it was staring straight at me. Or whether, like with the other one on the farm, I think it was more bothered about me spotting it, because it didn't cloak itself. And I had the binoculars, so I've been fortunate enough to see it, and it's known straight away. I've clocked it, so it's not happy. And that's when I got hit with that infrasound thing. I think it's a similar situation to that, because I'm pretty curious, and I'm really on the ball. And when I'm looking, and I wasn't even putting that much effort in, to be honest, but it was so obvious, because the line on the hedge was so flat. But then, when I've gone, I think I went in the kitchen something, because I was always checking the doors. And then I've gone back in the front room, and this massive lump, it's you can tell if you've ever seen one of these massive dogmen with the massive shoulders, and the head sort of blends into the shoulders. Like, it's not like a neck. It's just a head and goes into the shoulders. That's what I was seeing. And it was horrific. And you would not want that to get hold of you, I tell you. It would just snap you to pieces. So it's obviously caught wind of us and followed us up that path. But I've spoke to a few people about the area, and me and Johnny and hopefully Ian and hopefully Danny, and another friend of ours, Ashley, hopefully we're going to get up there. I'd like to take them up there and spend a night, rent one of them cottages out, because the holiday homes right across from the farm, and do a bit of surveillance on it, have a chat with that farmer again, and see what we can come up with.
You don't frighten easily, Dave. Got to give it to you. Not at all. You told us why you waited to do it, but when you finally did tell Danny about your Dogman experiences and what it really was the two of you were dealing with that night, did you have any concerns about him being mad at you for not coming clean earlier?
No, I thought I was faced with, he's not going to believe me, because I was struggling to go out, but I had to tell him the real reasons, but I'd done that much of a good enough job. He was just overwhelmed with what I'd seen. And it's like I said, me and Danny were really linked up in every way. So what I've told him, he fully believed me, and he's just said, I want to go camping next week. That's all he said. He said he wants to go out again. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know, yeah. So, but we're both like that. So, I mean, I'll tell you, if we do this again sometime, there's loads of other things I could tell you, but see, I've jumbled them all up, like I've started at the beginning and I've ended up at the end. So, but there's other things, loads of other things that I could tell you about. But we'll do another one if this goes well.
Count me in whenever you're ready. All you have to do is let me know. And please let Danny know. If he'd like to speak with me, I'd love to do that, so we can just set this up.
I'm always on to him about it, yeah. He's got some cracking stuff to tell you about, so I'll be speaking to him tomorrow, so I'll remind him definitely.
Sounds good. I'll be here.
Cool.
5 years later, when he told you about that massive black animal that had been attacking sheep around Loftus, did your mind instantly go the Dogman direction?
Yeah, 100%. Whenever I hear about cattle that are being attacked and going missing especially, a lot of people put it down to theft. People, they've just been dragged off and eaten. Plus, it's the way he said it as well. But I've got to get up there and speak to the farmer myself and get my own words across in my own delicate way, so he can tell me, because they don't really have a clue. Some do. Some of these farmers are harbouring a lot of stuff that they could do with telling us, but they don't. Then they're not shy from knowing a thing or two. Others will be oblivious. But I couldn't get hold of this farmer to speak to him. But so when I plan on going back, I'll be having a good chat with him. But yeah, I instantly knew it was Dogman-related, 100%. It's too close to the moors. Plus, this sighting of the black dog had been seen over a period of months. Years, not months. This isn't a new thing. But the cattle that were getting attacked, and that's been going on for a long time as well. So this isn't something new for the area. But it makes sense to me, because if these animals are coming off the moors and they're hitting these coastline villages, it makes perfect sense, because there's a lot of food around there, a lot of farmers, and they'll just nip off the moors into these areas, and it's perfect place for hunting. Whip a few animals and then they back off on the moors onto where they live. Yeah, that's the way it is. But I'll be doing a lot of trips up Yorkshire. There's loads of places I need to see this year. It's going to be pretty... I've got Louise a lot of camping stuff at Christmas. There's stuff I've still got stuff coming in the post, like as we speak. So she's got enough equipment come with me now, so I won't be leaving her, so I can get out a bit more.
Well, I hope you can. I just hope that you're safe when you do it. You told us how evil the Dogman that had those hyena qualities looked. You also told us about how it looked like it could cloak. Do you think those two qualities might point toward it being a demonic being, or do you think it was still just a flesh and blood creature?
I don't know. All as I know is it looked evil as anything I could imagine. Now, I had the worst time with the one on the farm. That was unimaginable. I barely had a moment with this thing, and I'm telling you now, hand on heart, it looked like it had complete malice to it, evilness. It's the way it just glared at me. If there's a saying, looks can kill. It's actually based on fact. This could kill you with its looks. It was horrible, I'm telling you, and it was I even got the impression it was slightly hunching down, because of the way it just looked like that to me. But its head was massive. It was his eyes that were the worst. It was squinting its eyes. I'm not too sure whether if it's got its eyes wide open, they're easier to see when they're cloaking. I've thought about it 1,000 times, but it's like it was really it closed his eyes enough where he could see me. But it wasn't showing any reflection, because them eyes shone like mad and they were evil. And I got a horrible evil feeling off it. Yeah, it was. It really could be, you could say demonic. Definitely evil of some presence. It's definitely, I don't know. I really don't know. There's so many things that beat me up at night time that I haven't uncovered yet, the knowledge-wise, and it's like I'm going into it full force next year from January. Really, I'm going to start making some ground. There's just too many avenues you could go down, too many different paths with, and always, so you're always uncovering something new. But I don't know if it can cloak itself. It could be. I don't know, Vic. It's a tough question because I know I get asked this quite a lot by people. Some of these creatures, the werewolves or dogman, whatever you want to call them, have been around forever. It's dated in and documented in history, no matter where you go. But I've also found out lots of other things that, I mean, this is where you start to lose people's interest, because it does get into the nitty gritty of like paranormal, and it's like aliens as well. Aliens, especially the grey aliens and the reptilians, they absolutely despise humans. And I'm not going to go down that route, but they've been known to often breed and drop these animals, these dogmen, in locations just to cause havoc. Or I've heard that many a times, loads of times. So, I mean, they could come from any angle. They're also, very, very spiritual as well, apparently. But like I said, I've had no positive encounters, me. They've all been full grade A, horrible. And if I wasn't in the safety of a building, I'd have been dead. 100%. They'd have roped me into some kind of comfort zone. I'd have gone off track and I'd have met me end. That's the way I look at it. And I will not change my mind on that. I am not speaking bad about them because I'm fascinated with a creature, but I can only say what I've experienced. And if anybody's thinking that something good's going to come out of bumping heads with one of these, you are definitely thinking the wrong way. Nothing good. Because if these creatures can get you and they're hungry in the right place, you're a goner. That's the way I'll say it. Definitely. They're horrific. If any animal can make you feel like you're going to die just by looking at you, where do you think that's going to lead? It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. So that's my sort of view on things. But there's some cracking stories out there lately that you've been giving off, and I don't know. So hopefully next year we'll have some new stuff, definitely.
Well, if you do have more experiences, I hope they're not bad ones, but I guess time will tell on that.
Yeah.
If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest on one of my 2 Bigfoot shows, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let me know. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Of all the encounters you've had with dogmen, Dave, which one is the one you think about when you find yourself in a dark, frightening location?
If I ventured out of Cheshire, the first thing on my mind would be the hyena one, definitely. But wherever I go in Cheshire, I'm always aware of the one on the farm, because I'm always bothered about it picking up my scent again. So I don't like to. I've been camping a few times round the areas, but it's been with friends and stuff. But I do worry about it picking up my scent, because then I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't forget me. Because obviously it was all over me for a couple of weeks when it was stalking me on the farm. 3 weeks possibly. It's a long time, and I know it's still lurking about, still knocking about. I often, sometimes, not so much lately, but a few years back, I would always sit out in the back and I could hear all the howls, and I've heard the scream that nobody else around here would ever have a clue of. I've told Louise about it. I've only ever heard it once, not too far from where I live. I live now roughly 15 minutes walk away from that farm. And that's how close I am from the fields. So it's not far. So every time I go out, I'm always aware. Sometimes I've heard the noises at night that only a dogman can make. I know they're out there. And right behind our house, it's just fields and fields and fields and fields. And latch on to the Nunsmere, to the Delamere Forest and blah, blah. It was just before I got with Louise. I was up these ways and I heard the scream. And it's like there's an Irish guy who you interviewed. It was an amazing interview. The 12 men and 2 dogmen. He describes it perfectly as well, where he says it was like a woman screaming, like a gurgling. Sorry for the graphic way I'm going to explain this. Can you imagine a woman deep in woods getting strangled? The noise that she would make, where it's not just a normal scream. It's like she's getting strangled or something. That's the only way I can describe it. That's what it sounds like. And then it just goes into just drifts off into silence. It's weird. It is. I've heard that once before, in fields not far from here. But yeah, it's very frightening. Some of the noises they make. I've heard also the way they communicate as well at Delamere Forest. That's a story I'll tell you another time if we do another one, because I'd like to tell you what's happened at Delamere Forest altogether. That involves me and Danny, but we had a pack of them hunting, and you could hear them ripping through trees, and the noises they were making, the noises hyenas make, the yipping, where they were bouncing off each other. They were nowhere near each other. They were separated all around the forest, like they were just bouncing communications. It was quite an experience, that was, but yeah.
Dave, why would you go and say that? You have any idea how many emails I'm going to get now from listeners? Vic, you've got to have Dave back to tell us about these experiences in Delamere Forest. We've got to have him back. Have him back yesterday. The dog maniacs, when they hear that, they're going to be on me.
If this goes out well, because I'm struggling here, Vic. I've been pacing around while I've been doing this. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to speak to Danny and get Danny, because the next time we go camping after the one where we call the police, we go to Delamere Forest. And that was a last minute job. And that's where we heard them out hunting. But I won't spoil it now. But they ended up circling us during the night after we lit a fire. It was I'll tell you a story another time though, but it was amazing.
Sure is amazing that you ever even go outside anymore after all these experiences you've had with them. I just hope you never have another encounter with that one that looks like a hyena.
Oh God, it's horrific. If it had seen that full in flesh, if it had shown itself, I reckon it's enough to kill you just by looking at it. It looked a monster, complete monster. I seen the dark marks on its face as well, which was peculiar enough. I didn't mention that before. Seen dark marks, like squares, like circles, on its cheeks, circles like hyenas have. That's a weird bit as well. Like fur, dark patches of fur splattered all over its face. That's how I knew it was the hyena type. Oh, it was immense, it was.
Oh, I'm sure it was. You said it had those splotches on its face, but did you notice any other pattern to its spots on the rest of its body?
They were just like round spots on. You didn't see too much because it was still a distance away, like 20 foot away. But I could clearly see it was the hyena type. Instantly, it's not something I thought about. I knew it was the hyena type, but it was the evil way it was looking at me. And the black spots, the black furry spots were going all the way from the front of its muzzle. Like it was like blotchy black. I can't explain. It's so weird. But it was like somebody had took a picture and stuck it behind a bush, but the bush was the picture. If that makes any sense. It's so hard to explain, but it was like made of leaves, but I knew what it was and I could see the detail in its face, and the blotches were all up its muzzle. It's quite a big muzzle as well, all the way up to its eyes and all round its chin area. And then it was like grey, dark grey, and made of the tree. It's so weird. Sounds daft. I've thought about it so many times how I'm going to explain it to you, but yeah, it's a tough one. But woof, God, I wouldn't like to bump into that. Tell you.
Can't say I'll blame you. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Dave. But before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
No, what I will say is I've had some fascinating conversations with people off the last interview. Loads of people have got in touch with me asking if they could pick me brains and stuff. So I just want to put that out there. Of course you can. If anybody has any questions or wants to pick it, anything that I've been through or go over it again, or they've got something they want to tell, please just get in touch with me on Facebook. Easy. You'll find me. I'll gladly point you in the right direction, and keep the momentum going. Like if you know anyone knows anybody that's having troubles with something they've seen, get themselves in touch with you so we can get these stories out there, because they just seem to be getting better these days. Brilliant. I think that's it, mate.
Let me run something by you here, Dave. Not to say I'm going to do this, but to kind of freshen things up, I'm thinking about inviting guests from past shows back on and have them answer questions that the listeners have for them. If that's the case, if I decide to do that, would you be open to coming back and answering questions the listeners have for you?
Definitely, yeah. 100%. Count me in.
Oh, good. Good. That's good news. There's a good chance I'm going to do that, so yeah, don't be surprised if I contact you about that and ask you back on.
Cool, yeah. Just let me know, Vic, anytime.
That would be great. Well, Dave, I can't thank you enough for coming back on and sharing the details of those experiences with us. Like I told you before, though, I'm just so sorry you had those.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for having me, Vic. I've enjoyed myself again. Just wish I wasn't full of cold. I hope I've done it justice, because it does grate on me. I hope whoever's listening to it just can put themselves in that position to try and... No, I don't want to scare anyone what's out there, especially people from Yorkshire, but they need to know.
Yeah, they definitely do need to know. Well, thanks again so much for your time, and have a great night.